Look, when we were nearing draft day, Stroud's stock was somewhat falling, and some thought with the new defensive minded head coach, they would just simply pass on Stroud and draft Anderson at 2. What was your reaction to the pick of Stroud?
Well, I was at the draft party. So the Texans have a big draft party every year out at an outdoor theater here called Miller Outdoor Theater, which is a big amphitheater. And on a good day, it's got a kind of seats and a big grass sort of amphitheater bowl where people general admission get their seats and sit out there. There were 8,000 people out there for the draft party that night, that's more than a full crowd out there. So the buzz was very, very palpable. I wasn't totally buying all the talk leading up to the draft that they weren't going to take a quarterback, just because I envisioned what it would be like here to go back into training camp with Case Keenum and Davis Mills as their quarterbacks, and I just don't think that was going to be something that the organization was going to be able to stomach and the fan base would be able to stomach. So the buzz on C.J. Stroud the day of the draft, when we were at the draft party, the odds started skewing heavily that they were going to take C.J. Stroud, and even with that, I think there were still some people that were like, I'll believe it when I see it. And when they took C.J. Stroud with the pick, this theater I'm telling you about, Michael, has a huge movie screen where they were showing the draft. The place obviously went nuts, and I'm celebrating with Texan fans, and you look up at the screen, and all of a sudden their logo is back on the screen for the third pick, and then it went like next level because everybody knew what was coming next. And when they drafted Will Anderson, the place just went crazy, and it's the best this fan base has been able to feel about the team in a moment since the playoff win over Buffalo in January of 2020, where Deshaun Watson pulled that magic act to beat the Buffalo Bills. It was an amazing night, and I think it's something that the fan base has really been thirsting for over the last few years. It was very, very palpable.
Excitement is the name of the game. To build a team and to want players or to have players to come there, you have to have momentum and excitement. They had that with C.J. Stroud. After watching, you probably did, going into the draft, tons of film. You wrote articles about Stroud and if you could get him and if he was still there and what about Bryce Young. But really taking it into your own eyes, really. And right in this camp a few days ago, what did you see from him that impressed you the most and makes you confident about his future?
I don't know that I saw a ton in the rookie minicamp that moves my opinion one way or the other because they don't do much there that translates to Sundays in an NFL regular season game. They're running a lot of drills. He definitely carries himself in a way that you can tell. Look, you can tell the guy played at Ohio State, right? Like he's probably played for a more hostile fan base in college than he does right now in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that college fans can be absolutely insane. Way more than NFL fans in a lot of places, and definitely more than they are in Houston. At least this iteration of Texan fans who's just happy to have good players again on the team. So I think he carried himself that way in that rookie minicamp. But I think just the way that he handled those last couple weeks leading up to the draft, where, as you kind of alluded to before, he was somebody where I think some of the function of what you alluded to before of the Texans maybe not taking a quarterback had to do with the fact that C.J. Stroud was taking some hits leading up to draft night with the S2 cognitive score and with some of the rumors about his coachability or lack thereof getting put out there, which really felt like a lot of stuff that teams might be putting out there to see him drop to them in the draft. We see that sort of gamesmanship all the time in the draft. I was just really impressed with the way he handled the draft process, and he was great in his press conference the day after he was drafted. They draft CJ and Will, and they fly him here to Houston, and the very next day they're doing a press conference with D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, sort of a four-man press conference up there. And CJ was affable, he was funny, he was thoughtful. So I've just been very impressed with the way he's carried himself. Now, none of it matters if he gets into the regular season and he's not grasping Bobby Slowick's offense. But for now, really all we can go off of is what we're seeing, and just in terms of how he's handling the enormity of being drafted into the NFL, and I give him I give him an A for that so far.
Look, this is a developing year for Stroud, right? This isn't a make or break. He's going to have 2-3 more years. This is a full-scale developmental year for him. But taking into account that it's his first year matchup with the first-year head coach, and he has a limited amount of weapons, and he's playing with a team that has a very limited amount of skill. What does success look like for Stroud in year one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one, it starts with protecting the football, making good decisions, doing things where he's not losing games for the Texans. Davis Mills led the league in interceptions last year, and I don't put all of last year's subpar offensive play on Davis Mills. I don't think Pep Hamilton was a very good offensive coordinator. I don't think they did last year's team any favor with the coaching staff they put together. So I think it starts there for C.J. Stroud. Just don't be the reason you're losing games. And I think beyond that, I think handling the adversity of what's probably going to be, at best, a slightly below average football team. I think that's the big question. The biggest question for me, Michael, when young quarterbacks from good programs come into the league, is how are they going to handle losing? Because, let's face it, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, they're going to lose more games before the middle of October than they probably lost their entire college careers at Alabama and Ohio State. So how do they handle that? How do they handle the questions? How do they handle the blame? All of those things. I think those are things that don't necessarily show up in the record, but those are things that as we're evaluating C.J. Stroud in his rookie year, just the maturity and the coachability, and is he making progress? I think Texan fans can live with a 6-11 season if it feels like at the end of the year, that the losses, the 11 losses, especially the ones that might happen in December and January, are ones where C.J. Stroud gave you a chance to win those football games.
Yep. And the other guy you talked about with